Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Welcome back to Marvelous Disney with Dan Graney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings of one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the dynamic Dan Graney, and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, October 26th. And so, what, Halloween is, I'm bad at math, 5 days? Is that right? That makes sense to you?
5 days away. That's it'll be Friday. Friday.
Okay. Now I have to ask. I don't know if you've heard Len describe what they go through in Celebration, Florida for Halloween,
Yes.
where they have more than 3,000 children show up at the house, and it just at the end they're just handing them furniture. I guess it's like, I'm sorry, we're out of candy. Would you take some drywall?
It sounds like, now, did he not say that they do full-size candy bars? I thought he did, and that would certainly explain why.
It did, and at the same time, Hannah still managed to go to a good college, so he wasn't dipping into her college fund. Wow. I have to ask, though, how is Halloween in your neck of the woods? Nothing quite that crazy, right?
No. I think it's probably, I want to say around 100, but it is quite a few. A lot of people walking around. Mm-hmm. We're always dressed up, and it's actually sad now because I have one kid who doesn't like to dress up or go out. He just really wants the candy. And my daughter will be at another friend's house. So now Paula and myself will be, like last year, and the year before, we'll be dressed up with our dog walking around. So, but we'll be out there, and there'll be plenty of people. But I want to say, I'm going to guess. I'm going to give it. I'll go with an even 100.
Wow. Okay. Now, I have been living with Nancy. In fact, 28 years this September. And I have to tell you, in the 28 years we have lived together out here in the woods of southern New Hampshire, we have had one trick-or-treater. And in fact, it was at the time we had this lovely family that lived on the other side of the stream across from our property. And, I practically had to beg this little girl, please come to our house. We never have trick-or-treaters. And so, she almost begrudgingly came up on our porch but she won the lottery. I mean, I literally tipped the entire thing of candy into her bag. And at that time, Disney Publishing was sending me one of everything. And so, I literally, which princess do you like? And it's, if you get, I think she said Jasmine, and I handed her like 5 books, and she was like, I am definitely coming back next year. But then they moved. So it's like, I got nothing. Halloween here is, just, hoping, a raccoon that's bothered to put on a costume shows up. But.
So people would say that your place is really dead.
Okay, there we go. The Halloween theming kicks in. All right. Now, mind you, contrast, folks, Orlando is quite lively this time of year, thanks to seasonal hard tickets like Mickey's Not So Scary or Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. But again, hard tickets, and you need tickets to hard ticket events, which is why, Dan, we should probably acknowledge our sponsor here, which is unlockedmagic.com, where you can get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlocked Magic is run by the exact same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. Just pick your dates and grab your ticket tickets. And more to the point, when you grab your tickets at unlockmagic.com, let the nice people know there that it was Dan and Jim who sent you. And I'm forgetting. Did this year they do any zombie related stuff at Universal, either of the stateside Universal parks? Because I know in the past they've done houses that actually key off of The Walking Dead. But
yeah. I don't. I mean, I remember listening to you and Eric talk about it, and I don't know that I saw or heard anything related to zombies. I mean, I not specifically or zombie themed.
Well, and the reason we're bringing that topic up, folks, is, well, Dan, when he was doing the research for this week's show, you came across some very encouraging news about how the Marvel Zombies limited series actually did on Disney Plus, right?
Oh, yeah. Surprising, I guess, to Disney and Marvel. It surpassed their viewership expectations for the 5-day opening. And even though they know that there was they acknowledged that there, some people there was some criticism about it, especially with its place in the multiverse. And I think people, when you bring it in the multiverse, they're trying to figure out, like, how does this all fit together? And does it fit together? Is this canon? And so they acknowledge that, that can be challenging or tricky. But Brad Winderbaum basically said, multiple realities can lower stakes. So, and suggested that zombies, they work because it's a self-contained universe where death is final. So, they, with those successes in that discussion, it seems like, and the way it ended, especially, I think, for those of us who enjoyed it, we, that definitely points the way to, we hopefully will see a follow-up. But director Brian Andrews said, there's no guarantees for anyone. So if you watch the show, which, I mean, anybody who watched the 5-episode run or 4-episode miniseries, there's a lot. I mean, to have zombies, one must no longer live. So the stakes are relatively high.
And so, and that's, I have to admit, with that one, the way it ended, sort of teeing up a second installment if they so decide, but at the same time, it's like, who's left?
That is fair. Yeah. It was a very, very short list. I mean, they could fit in one car, as I remember.
Oh, well, there we go. And by the way, anyone who listened to previous a couple of our Marvelous Disney reboots, I have gone on the record about zombies. Dan, on the other hand, I don't think pro-zombie, negative zombie. How do we feel about this?
Well, I like to say that the menagerie of scary and spooky, creepy things, zombies are just really not high on, they don't make it very far in my bracket. I love a handful of zombie movies. Love Shaun of the Dead. I was watching Return of the Living Dead the other night, but they just don't really give me the willies or the heebie-jeebies. Clowns, though.
Interesting you say that, because I now have to ask. There is It, Welcome to Derry, the prequel to It, both the books and the parafilms. Are we watching this?
I will. And yeah, it's going to bother me. The clown thing, and everybody's like, how can you watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space? And I always explain, it's like, they're not clowns. They're aliens and they're monsters. But you put a normal person in clown makeup, forget it.
Got it.
If you saw those It movies, at a certain point, he turns into a monster, and then it's like, it's not scary anymore. But just plain old Pennywise, It's going to be awful.
Well, now the interesting thing is,
it.
I apologize. I should have, I've been seeing stories bubble up on social media this week about evidently Stephen King fans are actually seem to be upset about the way Pennywise is portrayed in this prequel series, that I guess they're making some sort of changes to his backstory. Apologies, I should have actually gone a little further than the headline. On the other hand, you just mentioned Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, at Universal Studios Florida, they actually had a scare zone that was Killer Clowns from Outer Space themed, and oh my God, they did such a great job with the walk around characters. I mean, they were dead on model, straight out of the film, and it was like
great.
Ooh, oh. But anyway, folks, there is more to the MCU than zombies, and tell you what, when Dan and I get back from this break, we will talk about that. But first, this.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with this plight?
Aha!
Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
And we're back. And well, aside from the undead popping up this Halloween, but not trick-or-treaters. They never come into my house. There's a certain Marvel character who hasn't made any appearances since the days of Marvel on Netflix, but primed to make a reappearance. In fact, this is one of the stories coming out of New York Comic Con, which we reported a little bit on the last show. So who are you talking about, Dan?
Well, it is the return of Kristen Ritter, Jessica Jones. She was there. The cat's definitely out of the bag on that. Brad Winderbaum teased that her Jessica Jones will be back for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. There was a lot of speculation that we would probably see her coming in to play at the end of that first season, and that's come to fruition. She was there. She had been seen around the shooting locations for a while, but this was the first official moment that they brought her out on stage. And funny thing, she shared some of the teaser that they showed on her own personal account. So I didn't watch it. I don't know what they played, but it was actually Kristen Ritter's Instagram. She shot it from the side of the stage. It looked terrible, but which I thought was kind of funny because she's picking up the Tom Holland mantle a little bit there. But
there we go.
One thing they did tease is a possible spinoff or a continuation of her show. And they actually said that Jessica Jones might be coming back sooner than we think.
That would be lovely.
Both Winderbaum, and it would be great.
Yeah.
That was a show that that show. It had three seasons. The first season was fantastic with David Tennant as the Purple Man.
Mhm.
But it was a good, solid season. It definitely left a few dangling threads,
Mhm.
and people love the character, and she's great as Jessica Jones, and you can tell that she loves it too. She's always game to talk about it. She's made convention appearances, so we know that both Kristen Ritter and Brad Wenderbaum, they've discussed wanting to explore these unfinished arcs. So you could say that those Netflix era Marvel shows are coming back from the dead.
We are really leaning into the Halloween thing. But speaking of which, we've already had one of the Netflix Marvel shows come back from the dead, and that's Daredevil Born Again, right?
That is correct.
Mhm.
Yeah. Daredevil Born Again. We've talked about this, and we talked about its ties
Mhm.
with Spider-Man Brand New Day. That has, and there was some speculation, early on, Kevin Feige said, they don't necessarily all the TV stuff and the movie stuff. They don't have to be that tightly woven together. But Brad Winderbaum confirmed that these exist in the same world. They both take place in New York City.
Mhm.
Born Again is, March 2026. Brand New Day is July.
Next year.
And there are
Mhm.
some theories about what we might see happening in this show, in Daredevil,
Mhm.
which is, a possibility, especially we talked about the street level characters that they're bringing in. But, could Kingpin maybe have a slide in his, ratings with the population? He seemed to kind of game his way up to mayordom anyway.
Mhm.
So, do we see, Kingpin's fall, gang wars? We know we talked earlier about how Tombstone's going to be on.
Mhm.
We know the Punisher's going to cameo. We think the Hulk, and that's not a spoiler. We know
Yeah.
that Mark Ruffalo is part of the cast, but is it just Mark Ruffalo? Or is it the Hulk? We don't know. So for brand new day, a lot going on.
Yeah. Now, what's kind of interesting about this, and in fact, Dan and I were pre-gaming this out ahead of the show tonight. Charlie Cox has just recently done an interview, and I think we mentioned on the last show that, it's like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if, Daredevil showed up in Brand New Day? But the interesting thing is that Cox, in this interview, said, nope, not in Brand New Day, and not in, also worth noting, the two new Avengers movies, the Doomsday and Secret War. And but Dan pointed out that if we are talking, if we climb in the way back and go back to this equivalent time when Spider-Man No Way Home was being shot, Mr. McGuire, I believe, would have, oh no, I'm not in that movie. Why would you say that? So that's our concern, Dan, is that, the fact people telling us things that maybe might not be true further on down the line.
We had Jeremy Renner just a couple weeks ago say he's not in it at all.
Mhm.
So I think the standard answer for anybody being asked if they're in any of the upcoming Avengers movies is to say, nope, not at all. Don't know anything about it. What's an Avenger?
Oh, there we go. There we go. Now, I have to ask, if you're looking forward to Brand New Day, who do you want to see in this thing?
Well, I'll tell you what. I would like to see the one and only Pizza Papa, Bruce Campbell.
Oh,
now
love me some Bruce
got
Campbell.
A very strong. Now, granted, that he was in that, as he is. He's made many cameos in many Sam Raimi movies because they grew up together. They went to high school together. They started the Evil Dead franchise together. But he was in the first Spider-Man. Remember, he was the ring announcer. He technically is who calls him. He names him Spider-Man.
He does. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He played a snooty usher in Spider-Man 2, and then he played a maitre d' in Spider-Man 3. And there was a rumor, which he supported, that he would have played Mysterio had Sam Raimi made his fourth Spider-Man movie.
It's interesting you say that, because there are those storyboards out there. I mean, mind you, Mysterio in that movie, I think, is dispatched like 5 minutes in, right? I mean, it just sort of,
Well, usually what happens to Sam Raimi in movies that he's not starring in.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Congo.
There we go.
He was in Congo for 5 minutes.
This is true. Now, mind you, if you, like me, are a fan of Bruce Campbell's work, it's important to state here that you and Hunter just did a brand new B-side over at the Hubbubbery that is right. Pays tribute to Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, obviously we're big fans.
Big chin, big fans. It certainly makes sense, and me as well. I mean, but it's also important to remember that Bruce has worked for the mouse. I mean, in fact, he starred in that Love Bug TV movie in '97, which, by the way, Dan, if you haven't seen, it's worth seeing alone, because the Love Bug goes to battle with the hate bug. But the other thing that, again, for why it's cool we're talking about this on the Marvelous Disney podcast, is that TV movie was directed by Peyton Reed, the gentleman who then went on to direct the 3 Ant-Man movies for the MCU. And I was lucky enough to get to interview Peyton a couple of years back. In fact, it was just after Dean Jones died. In fact, what's kind of interesting is Dean Jones makes a cameo in Bruce Campbell's Herbie movie. And effectively, you get Dean Jones' character handing off Herbie to Jim Douglas, the original owner from the original films. And Peyton had these lovely stories about working with Dean Jones. And it was like, it turns out Peyton's a big Disney geek. So it's like, oh my God, I'm working with Dean Jones. So, but on the other hand, another Sam Raimi movie that me personally I love. Bruce was in Oz the Great and Powerful as a winky guard, who gets beaten up pretty badly. But that's also something that Sam delights in doing in his movies. By the way, folks, if Oz the Great and Powerful had made more money, it cost Disney $250 million to make. It sadly only grossed $493. And I was literally told by somebody at Disney, if it had made $500 million, we would have gone ahead with the stuff for the theme parks. And they were planning actually starting in Frontierland at Disneyland and to do an Oz thing. In fact, they would have beaten Universal, which is really leaning into the Wicked thing. But anyway, speaking of the Disney parks, Dan has done a bit of digging in regard to the various Marvel attractions that are out there. In fact, I guess we should start off by acknowledging that Mice Chat has some pretty impressive photos of the construction of the Avengers Infinity Defense. Is that the name this week?
So far, that is what they're calling it, and they seem like they've been sticking with that since D23. Still called Infinity Defense.
Okay, all right. So far, what we know about this thing is what? It's supposedly the same ride system or same vehicle as the Peter Pan Neverland Adventure, the thing that was a part of the Fantasy Springs project at the Tokyo Disney. Yes. So the attraction is going to be a mix of film footage, practical sets, and you traveling through these environments. And when they sprang the story on us, this was the D23 Expo. I want to see 2023, 2022.
I think it was 23.
Okay, and they introduced the big bad. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yes, King Thanos, which is basically, and they had concept art, and a lot of this is you can find out and about. It's pretty widely available. It wasn't. We're not spoiling anything here. King Thanos, which is an alternate universe Thanos who actually won. So this is definitely where the idea behind this ride, the story is basically, if there's a King Thanos, obviously this is a multiversal experience. And the new recruits, meaning the guests, are going to be helping stop King Thanos from using stolen multiverse tech to attack multiple realities. So the idea is that we're going to see not a single location in this ride experience, but a number of locations that we've seen throughout the MCU movies. And I think that includes Asgard, Wakanda, and New York City. Now, we don't know the whole story, and I don't think anybody wants to know the whole story right now, but we do know that they're bringing in some pretty heavy hitters for this ride experience, and that includes some voice talent. So we're going to see some major characters. We're going to see Black Panther, Ant-Man, the Hulk, and Tony Stark, voiced by Robert Downey Jr.
Wow. Okay. But that said, I mean, what's kind of interesting about this is the Avengers Infinity Defense really is kind of reminiscent of the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man at IOA. In that, it's a mix of screens and sets.
Right. Yes. It does seem a lot like that. Now, granted, that ride in Orlando, it's got a few years on it.
Yeah.
So this one's pulling in a little bit more of whatever. To your point, the ride vehicles are from are the exact same ride vehicles that are in Tokyo right now. It does feel like it's going to skew closest to the Monsters Unleashed at Epic Universe as far as the screen and practical blending together as seamlessly as possible.
Okay, no, but that's a good observation there. I mean, I guess for me, what's intriguing about this project, and in fact, one of the reasons I brought up Amazing Spider-Man is Heritage Auctions has an amazing auction going on later this month with evidently all sorts of art coming out of the Landmark Entertainment archive. I mean, if you go over there and look, folks, you can see artwork for the Wizard of Oz theme park that was never built but was based on the 39 film. So, I mean, some spectacular stuff that Wicked fans would probably want to take a look at as well. But in the pile there is also artwork that Landmark did for the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. And what's intriguing, folks, is this artwork, which shows the scene in the attraction set then in Times Square, drawn up in 94. Now, the attraction itself doesn't open until 99. And that's largely because things like this that use so much cutting edge tech are beasts to build. They take forever. And in fact, I think you in your research, Dan, even with the what's going on with the building at DCA now, we're still not expecting this to open till when?
Oh gosh, so construction's finally vertical, but they're still looking at 2027, 2028, and that's because a lot of this is also, it's not just this ride, which Avengers Campus has been teasing for a long time. At one point, it was going to be a Quinjet to Wakanda ride.
It was.
Yeah.
And in fact, what was fascinating about that one is that, everybody, I don't know if you saw the concept art for this, but what was going to happen is you were in a seat in the, in the Quinjet. And when you arrived in Wakanda, your individual seat then got on a ride track, and you then moved through this environment, and you were battling alongside the Avengers. And it was an amazing piece of concept art, but you looked at it, it's like, how the hell are they going to do that?
Right. Well, and it seems like they pulled a little bit out of that to do the second attraction, which is the Stark Flight Lab.
Yes.
Which is basically, from what they showed, and it looks pretty straightforward. And it looks like there's just giant kuka arms going around. And it looks like it's a training simulator. So it doesn't look like they're trying to theme the experience so much as just you get to go to Stark's labs. Again, Robert Downey Jr. is heavily involved with this. He had talked to Imagineering. He made an appearance in developing the story. He's doing the voice, and it's essentially without all the window dressing of what we've seen with other Kuka Arm rides. This one is leaning heavily into the idea of being a lab experience. Me personally, it also looks like a nauseous experience, but
okay,
we'll see.
Well, then, maybe don't stop at Pim Kitchen, and get yourself a giant pretzel before, getting over to the Stark Labs. But what's interesting about this whole situation, for example, you keep using the name that Disney has to use for this thing in California, which is Avengers Campus, because they can't, according to the contract, they can't use the name Marvel, and that. This whole contract situation with Universal having the rights to things, east of the Mississippi, but, individual rights for characters and that sort of thing, that's complicated, this situation, hasn't it?
This is obviously, Universal has, I'm sure you've talked ad nauseum about it, but they've got this, the forever contract. It's, they have they have Marvel in perpetuity for rights, the East Coast rights of Spider-Man and Hulk.
Yep.
But there's Marvel or Disney has found any little crack in that armor. They will use it, which is why we've seen other characters, including some characters in Orlando.
Yeah, well, again, we were just talking about the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man ride and Islands of Adventure, and of course, Avengers Campus in California has the Web ride, where you're with Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker, and spider drones, and something goes horribly wrong. And the part of that part of the story is, oh God, if it weren't so painful to friends at Universal, I would describe it as hilarious. But basically, as part of the deal to build Marvel Superhero Island in Florida, Universal got the rights to have walk-around characters, up on the upper lot at Universal Studios Hollywood, and they had Wolverine, they had Spider-Man, and it was one of these things where I want to say it was Christmas of 2008. Where they just wrapped the season, and Universal is looking at its operating costs for the Hollywood park, and it's like, how much are we giving Marvel for Spider-Man? And didn't they just wrap that film series? And it's like, yeah, I think we can let this go. and not realizing that Disney was going to turn around in August of 2009 and buy Marvel Entertainment outright, and suddenly put gas in the tank, so to speak. So the notion was that Spider-Man can be on the West Coast with an attraction, and by the way, can be all the way on the other side of the Pacific with the Shanghai, isn't that where they're building the Spider-Man coaster?
That's right. They have a Spider-Man coaster coming to Shanghai, which also shows loopholes in overseas rights. And not to forget the use of Marvel characters on the cruise ships.
Oh, yes. Well, again, you're in, once you leave Port Canaveral, you're in international water. In fact, I'm supposedly told that Spider-Man is literally locked in his cabin until they reach international waters. That they're okay. Let Mr. Parker out of the closet. So
it is. Yes, this has been a discussion and a question and a quandary for certainly Marvel enthusiasts is how long is Universal going to hang on to this?
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because to come full circle to Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful, I was told by somebody at Disney that they literally tried to use that movie as a bargaining chip, because they knew, I mean, Universal Theatrical, and again, by theatrical, I mean the stage arm of Universal had produced Wicked for Broadway, and they knew that the Wicked movie was coming. And so Disney evidently reaches out to Universal and says, hey, we're about to make Oz the Great and Powerful, which is about to launch a series of Oz films here at Disney, and we'll be doing stuff in the parks. And by the way, just to further muddy the water here, the first guy they went to for Oz was Robert Downey Jr. And then when he said no, it was Johnny Depp, and James Franco was a distant third, but he got the gig. But anyway, think about Oz the Great and Powerful with Robert Downey Jr. as the star.
Wow.
Okay. But the notion was Disney actually went to Universal and said, we will kill this movie, which will leave you free and clear to do whatever you want with Wicked. And we know you want to make a movie. We know you're bringing it into the theme park. All we ask is that you make an announcement that you're sunsetting the Marvel characters, that you're going to give us back the theme park rights. And this is 2011, 2012, 2 and 3 years after they got the rights. And Universal, to their credit, was like, pound sand. Go ahead, make your Oz movie. Yeah, we're fine. But anyway, it's an interesting time, to be looking at what's going on in the theme park space. And so often, well, again, to further muddy the water, like, for example, we have the Fantastic Four meet and greet that was in fact, out in Disneyland, and again, it could only be
Tomorrowland, right?
That's right. And it could only be on the West Coast because, again, they were included as part of the deal of those characters, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, the Human Torch and the like. Herbie, yeah.
Herbie was there.
Yeah. But again, Disney couldn't use those on the East Coast, but they could use it on the West Coast. But what's kind of interesting is that meet and greet started at Disneyland on July 25th, the exact same day the movie went into theaters, and ended on September 22nd. And not because it wasn't popular, but because that was being paid for by the studio rather than the park. And the park sort of staring down the barrel of, well, if you want this to continue, you'll have to pay for it. And it's like, yeah, where are those Zootopia characters? That's where we ended up.
I'm illiterate on this. I didn't know that the studios were footing the bill on that.
Oh, yes. So often.
No idea.
So often. I mean, for example, when, let's see. This would have been 2009. They did a Tiana's musical review in the parks in both California and Florida, this amazing street show that actually involved both of the full-size steamboats in both parks. The big cast, they performed like 5 songs from, all of the films, and guests loved it. They would line up for hours to get great positions to see it. But again, it was one of these things where the studio paid for that. And the day the studio stopped paying for it, the park was like, that's nice. We don't need that anymore. Here we are.
Has there ever been a time where the popularity is just too great and they just are like, let's just keep it going, I guess?
Well,
has they ever relented?
What was kind of interesting, folks may remember that Star-Lord and Groot thing that they had at Disney's Hollywood Studios in the Walt Disney Presents space. And what was interesting about that is that Hollywood Studios was actually willing to pay for that. In fact, I want to say that was in the parks in between the Guardians films. But at the same time, it was just the notion of, wow, this costs money. Okay, let's go someplace else. Let's try something different.
And that was the Groot. Was that the Groot robot?
It's the itty, but it was baby Groot. It was the itty bitty,
the little robot.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
But of course, they also have the giant Groot for the park, who also appears outside of. And again, they can do this in California.
Right.
The Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And he's amazing. I mean, that's a guy on stilts who's, or at least foot extenders who's, does a great job that far off the ground. And speaking of really big people in entertainment, when Dan and I get back from this break, we're going to talk about the king of all monsters. And what he's doing in the not only the Marvel space, but the DC space. But first, this.
Hey friends, this is Audie Cornish, host of CNN This Morning and The Assignment, and guess what? Every story you care about, every angle you want unpacked is now streaming on CNN. That means you can catch my show or other CNN programming whenever you want on your favorite device. And a subscription also gets you access to exclusive video series and unlimited articles. So subscribe to CNN at cnn.com/subscription.
All right, and we're back, folks. And again, because this is our show that's closest to Halloween, we've been talking about monsters a lot tonight. So, Dan, let's chat about the king of the monsters, Godzilla. I have to assume, given your love of cheesy things from the 60s and 70s, you must have watched a lot of the original Toho films.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I loved that stuff. I used to grow up watching here in St. Louis. We had something called Creature Features. It was on the weekends, and usually it was just old horror movies. I didn't know any better because I was a kid, and I would watch them every single night, and I would have nightmares every single night. And my mom would threaten she'd say, "You can't watch that anymore." And every single time I'd be like, "Oh, it's okay. I won't get scared anymore." And every single, I always did. I constantly got scared. And Godzilla, high on my list. Although I'm more of an Ultraman and Johnny Sacco and his flying robot, but I love Godzilla.
I can see that, and Godzilla's been with us for quite a bit. I mean, the first Toho film came out in '54, and by the way, he's still going strong. In fact, did you get to see Godzilla -1 a year or so back?
I did, and that one was I especially when you consider the budget. I don't remember the exact budget.
Yeah.
It was obscene what they were able to do with that movie, and then you see the budget. It is very, very telling.
Oh no, absolutely.
They were able to make a movie for what would be considered paltry for most of the major studios.
Yeah, I mean that I want to say that would cover the craft services budget. And but the interesting thing is that film Godzilla -1 actually won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. And again, for this amazing, film that was made on a dime. Whereas, here in the States, we started to try to make Godzilla movies in the 90s. Now hang on. I'm older. And so I remember, in fact, the ad in the trades when TriStar announced that they were going to make an American Godzilla film. But, first of all, this was when Jan de Bont, is that how you pronounce his name? The director of Speed and
Jan de Bont.
Jan de Bont. He was going to direct, and they had. In fact, I've got a copy of the script here at the house. It was by Ted Elliott and Terry Russo, the guys who wrote Aladdin, and it was a surprisingly good script. But then Independence Day comes out in July of '96, and Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, that makes a lot of money, and they have their pick of follow-up projects, and they want Godzilla, and they rewrite the really good script, and it comes out in May of '98, and we'll just leave that there, okay?
Can I interject about that script? Because I actually had a copy of that script sent to me because I used to work at an agency, and we did all the marketing tie-ins for Frito-Lay and PepsiCo. And so, that includes Taco Bell, who, had a huge campaign.
It did. In fact, I've got one of the souvenir mugs still up in the cabinet here at the house.
And I've talked about this before on other shows like Real Spoilers, but I got the script, and they're like, and the Frito-Lay people asked me, they're like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, this is not very good. And I'm like, as a Godzilla fan, I'm going to tell you that I don't know that this is going to go over very well. However, here's my idea, and this is what I pitched Frito-Lay. I pitched Doritos this. I asked the food scientists in Plano, Texas, if they could make a single giant Dorito for a bag of Doritos. And they said, yes, we could. Because I was like, can you make tiny ones so people get to feel like they are Godzilla? Or can you make a Godzilla-sized Dorito? And they told me they could. And that was the only thing that I pitched, which was a giant single Dorito in the bag. They're like, yeah, we just have to make sure we have enough air so it doesn't shatter. And that was my big push for them. It didn't happen.
Genius idea. Hold it. Now, I also have to say here, to be fair, the trailers for the 1998 Godzilla, plus I'm going to say that even the Taco Bell campaign was far more entertaining than the film. It was like,
absolutely.
The trailer made you think, oh, I want to go see that movie. And then you saw that movie and it's like, well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
But anyway, just to jump ahead here, May of 2014, we get another stab at redoing an American Godzilla, only this time around it's Gareth Edwards. And I want to say the only complaint I heard about that movie was that Godzilla maybe could have gone to the gym. Did you remember that?
He was husky.
He was a husky. There we go.
He was big. He's big boned.
Okay. But again, Garrett did a great job. And that the MonsterVerse still going strong. In fact, we know that Godzilla Kong Supernova, that's coming out March of 2027. But Dan and I are talking tonight about Godzilla because of what the King of the Monsters is doing in the comic book realm, where in kind of the same window of time, he's menacing DC and Marvel characters, right?
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre that this is happening. It's been a long time since we had a good, sort of 1-2 shootout. Usually it was between the studios. Like, there's 2 Volcano movies coming out, there's 2 animated Ant movies coming out, and now we've got Godzilla invading the DC comic universe and the Marvel comic universe. Yeah, so we've got Godzilla with fighting the Justice League. then Marvel destroying the Marvel universe, Godzilla destroying the Marvel universe.
Now, and again, Dan did some amazing research for this week's show, and you dug down into the fact that this is not Godzilla's first rodeo with the Marvel folks.
Oh no, and it was weird because the whole time we were working on this, and we were talking about it, and I had been reading the Marvel comics, and they're still ongoing. And then I read, thanks to you, I was able to get a copy of versus the Justice League, and I just couldn't shake something. I was like, I swear I had a Godzilla comic book when I was a kid. And sure enough, between 1977 and 1979, Marvel published Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it was a 24-issue run where Godzilla existed right there in the Marvel universe, and Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan and S.H.I.E.L.D. all chased him across America. And some of the highlights from this, because I don't remember all of this, but he fought the Avengers. He got shrunk to the size of a rat by Hank Pym, and even wandered around through the sewers of New York.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And the reason, this is really fascinating, the reason why this isn't really talked about more, although I think it's coming back, is that Marvel had a license with Toho, and it expired in 1979. So the name Godzilla disappeared. They kept sneaking the character that looked pretty much suspiciously like Godzilla into the comic books, the lookalike character, and they called it the Leviathan or one of Dr. Demonicus's monsters. But there was 2 years there where Godzilla more or less was like an Avenger. It just but like I said, it was lost to time.
Okay.
Under these rights issues, and they were only resolved, it was in 2006 where they actually they couldn't reprint these. So unless you found them at the comic shop, nobody even knew about these. But in 2006, they released the Essential Godzilla, and then the Marvel Godzilla Omnibus came out in 2021.
And the other thing worth noting here is Godzilla is continuing in the Marvel comic space.
That is right. Actually, at Comic-Con, just recently they announced, like I said, they're wrapping up the current story. Godzilla destroys the blank, the Marvel universe. But in 2026, they said that the King of the Monsters will be taking on the Cosmos in Godzilla Infinity Roar, which is going to be a 5-issue series by Gary Duggan, Javier Garron, and Iguara. So
wow, Infinity Roar. That's a great name.
Roar.
That's a great name. Okay. Now, to circle back to what has got us on this topic for this show. Now, you've managed now to see both, Justice League versus Godzilla and Kong, and again, Godzilla destroys the Marvel universe. And
yes,
but they have very different takes, right?
They do, and they look different too, and that's really sort of the key. Because I was like, how is this even happening? I mean, how are we doing this again? I mean, is Toho just licensing the character out? Well, yes and no. They are licensing the character, but here's the thing: the DC series is a crossover with Legendary's MonsterVerse, the Monarch verse, I should say. Because there's the show on Apple TV Plus, Monarch, which is a part of that whole series that we've seen with starting with the Gareth Edwards movie. So the DC Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong is a joint venture with Legendary Pictures, which is the studio behind that those Godzilla and Kong movies, and the upcoming one that is in pre-production now. Legendary holds partial Western media rights to those cinematic versions. So when we see Godzilla in the DC universe, that is the legendary Warner Brothers design of the character.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Marvel
is the Toho classic original Godzilla character. So a slightly different model, different continuity, and Marvel's deal is directly with Toho, not Legendary. So we've got parallel portrayals of two Godzillas, both owned by Toho ultimately, but sort of the modernized take and the classic take.
Got it. Well, for me, what I found interesting about paging through these two sets of comics was to watch how both the artists at DC and the artists at Marvel dealt with the fact that, again, that the character driving this story is 400 feet tall, and so Superman can go up against him, or Shazam, or for that matter Captain America or Iron Man, but the itty bitty character in these images, that's and again you have to compose a drawing in such a way that moves the story forward and lets you see your favorite superhero in that. And it brought to mind a story. Well, this comes out of The Lion King, and they were working on the scenes in the middle of the movie where it was Timon and Pumbaa and now adult Simba. And the notion was the artists working on it were complaining about the fact they'd compose a shot, and it's like, well, I got medium-sized Pumbaa, and I got big adult Simba, and I got teeny tiny Timon, and Nathan Lane is so great with his dialogue, so we keep he has more and more lines every time we turn around, but it's like, how do we compose these shots? And Jeffrey Katzenberg, who by the way is kind of a tiny guy himself, got irate about this, and it's like, no, you just have to be clever. You got to figure out how to compose these shots. We need more Timon. Figure it out. But all right. Anyway, the other reason we bring up Jeffrey Katzenberg on today's show is because, back when Raiders of the Lost Ark was in the works for Paramount, they were making decisions about how to market the movie, and it's like, who's gonna draw our poster? And there was only one choice. There was one master of posters of that era, and that was Drew Struzan, who sadly we just lost this past week.
Yeah, he had been ill for a while, and I remember when he retired, and there was I don't think it was long after his retirement, there was a documentary that was made. It's great if you can find it. I think it's on maybe Prime. It seems to have it all the time. But yeah, Drew, he's one of these artists that his artwork was part of the movie going experience. And honestly, when you would see his posters, he set the tone. And this isn't just a fandom speaking. There's a reason why George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and I mean, so many of Hollywood's creative leadership relied on him because if it's one of those things where it's like people may not know his name, but you just parade through the posters that he did, and he established the mood. I mean, his artwork, his poster work for like Back to the Future.
No, that's it exactly.
Iconic.
I mean, you would see a Drew Struzan poster, and it's like, I want to see that movie. Just that he could do that. He could make you, you suddenly became Philip J. Fry. Shut up and take my money. Just sort of like, that looks like a great film, just on the back of that poster. And by the way, folks, Drew in his lifetime put together a sort of a collective works. I think the book's called his oeuvre. And I want to say Lorna and I over on I Want That Too were talking about Drew, and I just on a whim like 3 months ago ordered myself a copy, and oh my God, Dan, it's I mean, you open this book and you're right back to your childhood. You're right. That one and that one. But it's not just his movie posters. It's his album covers, which, by the way, that's another thing. You look at that and oh my God, I didn't know he did that. And then his personal art. I mean, it's such a wonderful book. If you don't have a copy, chase one down.
Yeah, he was. I mean, his work was one of a kind. Now, there's been many sort of, I guess you could say, art, a lot of imitation, which. He retired, and so he acknowledged that there's a lot of people kind of picked up his style, and he had an appreciation for it. He never talked down to it, but it's not quite the same. I mean, you can see things that look like Drewster's, but when you look, and I always tell people, it's like, look at his artwork and then walk up really close. If you could see it in poster form, look really close, and you can see the pencil marks and the brush strokes, and realize it's not a photograph, and it wasn't Photoshop.
No.
I mean, this was just incredible skill, but it was also a use of color and light. And I mean, gotta hand it to Jeffrey Katzenberg, because between that and honestly, the 1978 re-release Star Wars poster.
No, that
which was the wrong size.
Yeah. But lovely. And he
came up with the best way to make it even better.
Yeah. No, that was killer. That was killer. Now, by the way, we didn't just lose Drew this month. We also, for music fans, we got some sad news as well, especially if you're a Kiss fan.
That's right. Ace Frehley passed just recently. He had a fall, and there was he had to cancel. He was on tour and he canceled some dates, and then he just did not recover. It was a fairly serious fall, and there was a mention of brain bleeding, and then he was gone, and it's right on the cusp of maybe a dubious anniversary of anniversary. I have a fondness for this, but actually about the time that this comes out, maybe a day before this comes out, the show comes out, October 28th, 1978, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park aired on TV. And that was at the pinnacle of Kissdom. That's when, Kiss had the action figures and the lunch boxes, and of course, the comic book with Marvel Comics.
Yeah. And please tell folks what made those special.
Well, it sounds just like a terrible idea now. But back then, in the 70s, Kiss, they all poured their blood into the red ink that went that they used to print the comic book. That's right. The 1977 Marvel Kiss comic had Kiss's actual blood in the ink. Not something that would happen at all today.
No. But on that note, I don't think we can end our Halloween adjacent show on a better note. So with that, folks, we close out this third episode of the reboot of Marvelous Disney. And Dan, if the nice folks want to hear more of you, where can they find you?
I would say head over to YouTube. Look for The Hubbubbery. That's HUBBUBBERY. Jim mentioned we did just post a B-side about Bruce Campbell, and also a Halloween episode where I break down what I call the 13 weeks of spooky season. Because for me, Halloween is 13 weeks of Halloween. But you can find more of that there.
So cool. All right. And Well, we do some other podcasts here at Jim Hill Media. These include Disney's Issue with Len Testa, Fine Tuning. That's one I do with Drew Taylor of The Wrap. We have the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Hersey, the very talented guy who produces a lot of the shows here at Jim Hill Media. And likewise, we have I Want That Too. That's the Disney Merch podcast I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Also want to remind you about Disney Unpacked. That's the video series that Mr. Testa and I do over on Patreon with veteran Imagineer Jim Schul. Let's see, as we run for the curtain here, want to ask a favor of you folks. If you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Marvelous Disney, that'll help make folks aware that this podcast is back. Also, if you got any Marvel-related topics you'd like Dan and I to discuss on future installments, please feel free to reach out through social media. Let us know. And once again, Dan and I prepped way too much material, which again will show up in episode 4. So come back for that in 2 weeks to hear what we almost put in this show. But beyond that, on behalf of Dan, thanks for listening to this episode of Marvelous Disney, and we will be back soon.